And joining me now is the progressive independent senator from Vermont, who caucuses with the Democrats, Bernie Sanders. Senator Sanders, it's good to see you, sir.
Good to be with you.
Let me start with what you know probably instinctively these days, but our polling has found 75% of the country thinks we're headed in the wrong direction. In fact, just 28% of Democrats right now think the country is headed in the right direction. Where do you stand? Do you think we're headed in the wrong direction?
I sure do. Look, what we're looking at is a nation today where the billionaire class, the people on top, are doing phenomenally well, Chuck. The middle class continues to decline. We're seeing increased concentration of ownership in America, which has huge impacts for ordinary people. You got three Wall Street firms, Vanguard, BlackRock, and State Street, that have assets of over $20 trillion, controlling hundreds of corporations. You're seeing millions of people unable to afford the cost of prescription drugs, unable to afford health care, unable to put gas in the tank. So how can anyone think that what's going on right now is good? And obviously, what I and other progressives are trying to do is put together a movement which tells the billionaire class in this country, whose profits are soaring, who are getting richer and richer, you know what, you can't have it all. We need an economy that works for the middle class, the working class, the elderly, the children, not just the few on top.
You know, it's interesting when you talk about the movement, because there's definitely, we see it in our own polling, there are more people that agree with sort of your mindset, that you're framing. We need big structural change. But what do we do now before the elections? What, you know, at the end of the day, you have the Senate that you have, not the one that you want. What can get done now that could actually mitigate what looks like it's going to be a tough year for Democrats?
Look, we passed early on in the Biden administration one of the most significant pieces of legislation in the modern history of this country. That was the American Rescue Plan, which, Chuck, in my view, did a whole lot to help people deal with the economic turmoil that we saw as a result of COVID and massive unemployment. What we have got to do right now, it's not hard. You know what you do? You listen to the American people and not wealthy campaign contributors. What does that mean? It means that right now you lower the outrageous cost of prescription drugs in this country. You have the guts to take on the pharmaceutical industry that right now has 1,500 paid lobbyists in Washington, D.C. You expand Medicare. I happen to believe, as candidates that I support believe, that health care is a human right, not a function of making huge profits for the insurance companies and the people who own them. You got to move toward expanding health care. You got to raise the minimum wage to a living wage. You got to create millions of jobs by dealing with the existential threat of climate. And by the way, you got to do what the American people want and understand that it is women who have the right to control their own bodies, not the government.
Okay, everything you said there was being addressed in Build Back Better. Okay, it wasn't as big as you wanted it. It was too big for some. But why do we have nothing? Right, that is the head scratcher here. Understand you don't have it all. Why is it zero? Why is there nothing?
Well, it should not be a head scratcher. You got two members of the Senate, Senator Manchin and Senator Sinema, who have sabotaged what the president has been fighting for.
That's a strong word, sabotage.
Sabotage. Well, you help me out with a better word here. You got 48 members of the Senate who wanted to go forward with an agenda that helped working families, that was prepared to take on the wealthy and the powerful. You got a president who wanted to do that. You had two people who prevented us from doing that. If you have a better word than sabotage, that's fine, but I think that is the right word. And I think pressure has got to be put on the part of people in West Virginia, in Arizona, to say, you know what, why don't you stand up for ordinary Americans, not just your wealthy campaign contributors? Why don't you have the guts to take on the drug companies and the insurance companies and the fossil fuel industry? And I think we have got to go and take that agenda that you indicated. It's what the American people want. Do the American people think it makes sense that some of the wealthiest people in this country pay zero in federal income tax? Of course they don't. Zero. Corporate, large corporations making billions pay zero in federal income tax. We have got to have the guts to go forward with an agenda that shows the American people what we're trying to do. You're going to have no Republicans supporting us. Let the American people see the difference between those who are fighting for working families and those who are not.
So let me ask you, though. I've talked to Pennsylvania Democrats, and they also blame Senators Manchin and Sinema. They don't blame the Republicans. Is that healthy for the party, that all of this concentration, and should you have found something to do that isolates the Republicans rather than you guys ended up dividing the party against itself?
No, I don't see it that way, Chuck. I mean, I think on all of these issues, we had zero Republican support for the proposals in Medicare, in Build Back Better, that were enormously popular. So it's certainly not just Manchin and Sinema. They are 2 out of the 50 Democrats who went in the wrong direction, but every Republican did. You didn't have one Republican who said that maybe in the richest country in the history of the world, we should expand Medicare to cover dental care, hearing aids, and vision. Not one Republican who said that maybe the United States should join every other major country on earth and have paid family and medical leave so a woman given birth today isn't forced to go back to work a week from now. Not one Republican. So if your point is it's not just Manchin and Sinema, you're right. It is every Republican. Now, the problem, I think, is we have not done a good job in making that clear to the American people.
Do you understand? Do you think if you don't produce something big here, maybe, look, prescription drug reform seems to be the thing you would think you could get 50 votes for. But let's say you get nothing. Then do you understand if Democrats end up losing control of the House and Senate? Do you think that's the explanation?
No, I think what we have got to do if we cannot even pass something. I don't know what the latest polling is, Chuck. You may know it. Is at 80, 90% of the American people who think we should lower the outrageously high cost of prescription drugs. We pay by far the highest prices in the world. Oh, everybody understands that we should do that. We have zero Republican support to have Medicare negotiate prescription drug prices and do what the VA does, which could cut prescription drug costs.
Do you have 50 votes for it, though?
So our job is, I would hope so. I'm not sure that we do. But if we don't, we certainly will not have one Republican support. So if we can't accomplish these goals, at the very least, we've got to make it clear to the American people that you have a Republican. We got 48 Democrats, 49 on some votes that want to do the right thing. You got zero Republicans. And we've got to make that clear to the American man. I'll tell you how you do that. You bring these votes right to the floor of the Senate. Let the Republicans vote no, and let their constituents see what they're doing.
Let me ask you about the vote to codify Roe this week. This is one of those votes that had 49 Democrats, not 50. Should it have been should the leadership have put a bill on the floor that could have gotten 52 votes, including Collins and Murkowski, to isolate the 48 Republican noes?
No, I mean, I think we'll see what happens. But to answer your question, I think nobody should think that this process is dead. We should bring those bills up again and again and again. I was just at a rally earlier, on Saturday in Montpelier, Vermont, my state capital. I mean, people cannot believe that you have a Supreme Court and Republicans who are prepared to overturn 50 years of precedent. So I think what we should do is on this bill end the filibuster, do everything that we can to get 50 votes on the strongest possible bill to protect the woman's right to control her own body.
Before we had this leak opinion about Roe being overturned, you didn't use the abortion issue as a reason not to support people. You've supported pro-life progressives if they were progressive on economic issues.
Well,
I recall a mayor of Omaha. I recall a race like that. Has your mind changed?
There you go, a mayor of Omaha.
No, I understand that. But is your philosophy changed? Is that a litmus test for you now for progressives?
No, well, I do find it interesting that at this particular moment, when literally a woman's right to choose is right at stake, that we have too many Democrats who are prepared to support a candidate in Texas who is one of the few anti-pro-choice members of Congress.
You're speaking of Henry Cuellar. You think that's a mistake?
Yeah, I do. And I think I'm supporting Jessica Cisneros down there. I hope she wins. I'm supporting Summer Lee in Pennsylvania. I hope she wins as well.
Do you think at this point, being pro-life, you can't be in the Democratic Party or in the Democratic coalition? Are you ready to go that far?
I mean, we will see. All that I can say is I think you have the overwhelming majority of people who consider themselves to be Democrats to be pro-choice. I have been pro-choice my entire life, and the candidates that I am supporting now are all pro-choice. Look, a woman's right to control her own body is really on the line, and we've got to do everything we can to defend that right.
Last question. Are you definitely going to rule out ever being a presidential candidate again? Or if there's an open race in 2024, could you
Why
run?
did I think you might ask that question?
Well, Faz Shakur wrote it in his memo.
You don't look. No politician I know rules out, all options. Everything is on the table. But right now, my focus is to do everything that I can to elect candidates to Congress who are going to stand up and fight for working families in this coming midterm election.
Fair enough. Senator Bernie Sanders from Vermont, always a pleasure, sir. Thanks for coming on, sharing your perspective.
Thank you very much.
Thank
you.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.